As the Austrian natural scientist Johann Natterer caught the first discus, presumably around 1830, in the region of the Rio Negro in South America, and Johann Jakob Haeckel described it as Symphisodon discus for the scientific world in 1840, they had no idea what an unusual fish they had bestowed upon aquaria sciences. Rudolf Kner, likewise an Austrian scientist, published nearly 30 years later the first illustration of the Symphisodon discus Haeckel 1840. But it took nearly another 7 decades until the fever for this fish erupted. While at that time other discus species or subspecies were already known, in the middle of the 20th century people still occupied themselves with the problems of the care and reproduction of this fish. While in the 60s it was believed that all of the colour varieties of these fish were already known, in recent times new varieties are being introduced, some with remarkable appearances. The typical colours of fish caught in the wild are still the #1 favourite of many discus lovers. Newly discovered colour variations such as the reds, native to the area of the Rio Ica, a river in the border region between Colombia and Brazil, or the impressive-looking variation of the Symphisodon equifasciatus axelrodi from the region around the city of Alenquer in northeastern Brazil, have, aside from the very rare colour varieties already mentioned, a remarkably high priority for many discus lovers today. What the colour varieties of fish caught in the wild are to a smaller part of the discus fans are the bred colour varieties for many other enthusiastic aquarists and breeders. What began as an experiment in crossbreeding in the 60s has become almost an everyday occurrence in the present time. In recent years, many responsible breeders have not only been concerned with the form but also with the colour, and blue was at the centre of attention. But while in the last few years the systematic breeding of the discus in Europe just seemed to chug along, in Asia it went full steam ahead. Remarkable news about the extraordinary successes by Asian breeders reached the discus lovers in Europe only sporadically. While the unusual new colours and the interesting forms from the Asian breeders had already started their successful march of triumph in the land of the rising sun and in the New World, the European discus lovers watched this development very sceptically, as they have often done in the past. Why is this? Is it because of the lack of information, or is Europe too conservative? Asia is apparently the leading and possibly guiding force in the breeding of the discus at this time. The discus farms in Asia are forecasting a successful path into the future for the discus. In the last few decades, centres of discus breeding have appeared in Asia, which include Singapore, Penang, Bangkok and Hong Kong, and of late, also Taiwan. To elucidate this trend, discus farms in Southeast Asia will be introduced in this film, whereby Hong Kong is the most easterly example of this enumeration. Hong Kong, the gateway to China, lies on the southeastern coast of mainland China in a transitional zone from subtropical to tropical climate. Hong Kong is a dream destination for many tourists and is without doubt one of the most beautiful, interesting and remarkable places in the world. Hong Kong, it is the hub of trade in Asia as well as the centre of the pulsating world of finance. Aside from the many small islands, Hong Kong is made up of Victoria and Aberdeen, which lie on the island of Hong Kong, and also Kowloon and the New Territories. Hong Kong, it is old traditions and a look into the future. In Victoria, this future has already begun. Hong Kong has already made the step into the 21st century long before many other cities in the world. Hong Kong. It is also a superlative touristic attraction. Once known as the last Western city in the East, today Hong Kong is a signpost to the next century. The teeming life between the modern skyscrapers and the chaotic traffic is one of a kind. The atmosphere of the megacities Victoria and Kowloon, and the view from Victoria Peak, the highest elevation on the island, down onto the sea of skyscrapers in Victoria, the heart of Hong Kong, are incomparable. As early as the 1950s, Hong Kong had made a name for itself in the field of aquaristics. Then, as now, the small neons are bred on a large scale on the mainland outside of Kowloon in the New Territories. Some of these breeding facilities have as many as 1,000 aquariums. The groundwater here has proven to be good breeding water. The breeders pump the necessary amounts from local wells. The water is very soft and slightly acidic, with a pH value of around 6. Successful breeders produce in accordingly sized facilities up to 1 million neons per year. 40,000 per month is considered to be a bad result. Because Hong Kong lies climatically on the border of the tropics, the temperatures often rise dramatically in the summer months. In comparison to other aquarium fish, neons can only reproduce at lower water temperatures, so that a successful breeding operation is only possible in the cooler months of the year, between October and May. Therefore, in the warmer summer months, a break in activity is inevitable. Today, Hong Kong not only stands for neons, aquaristically speaking, but also for the discus. In Aberdeen, in the southeastern part of the island, the 18th floor of the Tin Wan Close Building number 9 is home to one of the most well-known discus breeding facilities in the world that has made Hong Kong known to the circle of discus lovers well beyond the borders of Asia. Worldwide Fish Farm is also one of the largest fish farms in Hong Kong. For many years now, a multitude of discus fish that are highly recognized the world over have been bred in approximately 500 aquariums. The breeding and holding aquariums that function successfully because of very well-devised technical aids stand in very cramped quarters. The multitude of the different forms and colors of the discus fish at Worldwide Fish Farm is remarkable. Varieties such as the high body cobalt, blue diamond, high body red, and giant red are being propagated worldwide. But here, as well, the color red is steadily taking the place of blue because of the rise in demand. The spacious and very clean nursery and breeding aquariums that are fitted with plastic tubes as spawning substratum, as opposed to clay pottery that is customarily used elsewhere in the world, usually have a photograph placed on the back of the tank, which makes them very decorative. In spite of all the activity, great store is set on an attractive overall impression, and also possibly gives the fish a feeling of security. Nearly 200 breeding pairs are constantly used for breeding. 400 extra breeding pairs make up the reserve. Also in this case, the soft and neutral tap water is usually used for breeding. We are very satisfied with a degree of hardness between 3 and 4 and a pH level of 7, and we are able to work successfully with it, said those responsible at Worldwide Fish Farm. And the quality of the discus fish they breed underlines this statement. The quality of the forms and colours is very high. It is proof of the skill of Chinese breeders. But it is not the neon or the discus, but rather the goldfish that is inseparably connected with China. Since more than 1,000 years, they are the #1 favourite of the Chinese. Since nearly 500 years, they are part of the national heritage of the Chinese people. Even today, the aquarium shops along Fish Road in Kowloon offer a very large selection of goldfish in a wide variety of breeding forms. On the average, every 5th Chinese family in Hong Kong has an aquarium and is often filled with goldfish. Goldfish and koi, which are both known as cold water fish, are among the most popular aquarium and pond fish. But more and more the tropical ornamental fish native to Asia and South America are taking the aquariums of the Chinese by storm. For the visiting foreigner, the presentation of these fish is very unusual. Efficiently pre-packed plastic bags containing 4 to 6 fish are offered for sale. Clearly arranged on so-called sales displays, they allow a quick survey of the goods offered and enable a comprehensive judgment. While the store fronts of the shops are open to the street, this method of sales is not a problem, at least not in the summer months. Up until now, the range of the fish offered, with 40 different species, is still very modest, but it is possibly the beginning of a very quickly developing extensive aquaristics. There are approximately 600 mostly small fish and pet shops in Hong Kong that, aside from goldfish, also offer tropical aquarium fish in ever-increasing numbers, and that not only pre-packed in small numbers in plastic bags. The presentation of the kings of the Amazons, the discus fish, however, makes an impression of exclusivity and as if from another world. On a cramped space of 10 square meters, Victor Rocha displays a selection of his special breeding successes and other choice animals in an environment especially adapted to these majestic fish. The Rocha Discus Aquarium is an unusual place, and the terms sales room or fish shop do not apply in this case. It is rather a room that has been designed with a great deal of love and a wealth of imagination for the presentation of this extraordinary fish. The discus fish offered here are well developed and have beautiful colours. Only large animals are offered for sale. Here as well, blue breeding varieties prevail, but nevertheless, red is the colour of the future. The alenquer, which is often falsely called alencer here in Hong Kong, is in especially great demand, along with other brown colour varieties that are often very liberally considered as red. The large, clean, almost sparkling aquariums fill this discus boutique with its white, friendly decor adorned with flowers. In Victor Rocha's showroom, there are only discus fish on display in 10 middle-sized aquariums that do not appear sterile or drab, despite the lack of gravel. Here too, a photograph attached to the back of the tank and small decorative pieces make it very attractive. Because the night temperatures in Hong Kong can fall to around 10 degrees Celsius in the cold winter months, the aquariums must be heated. Little filter boxes equipped with an electric motor pump and mounted onto the aquarium provide for a good water quality, in addition to regular water changes, and therefore for clear, clean water. The exclusive Rocha's Discus Aquarium is most probably one of a kind, a boutique fit for a king. The circle of discus lovers in Hong Kong is constantly increasing, and therefore the demand for discus as well. The hobby breeders play an important role in this development. There are also enthusiasts in Hong Kong who use every square metre available to care for and breed their beloved discus. But it is often an indispensable extra source of income as well. Even the living room is then turned into a room for discus breeding. To date, several discus societies have already been founded where one can talk about the proper care and the reproduction of this fish. The clay vases for reproduction also play a big part for the hobby breeders, although they sometimes are of unusual design. Normal tap water is used for breeding and for general care. Equipment for water processing is largely unknown or not in use. Frequent water changes are indispensable for a good and healthy development. The water used here is also soft and neutral in its acidity content. The filters in use are well proportioned, but not always sufficient. The aquariums are warmed with electric heaters. Breeding and rearing take place at a water temperature of 30 degrees Celsius. The discus fish which are kept and bred here are also, above all, of the blue colour varieties, which can be exchanged with browns and reds, depending on the financial possibilities of the breeder. Only the source material here is of a different quality. Because the price for excellent breeding animals is very high, often it is only possible to work with affordable material, which can lead to distortions in competition. But also, in this breeding facility, they strive to breed high-quality animals. To escape from the cramped surroundings, a much larger facility was already in construction during the production of this video. Despite the limited possibilities, it was unmistakable that not only business was the main concern, but above all, interest and love for the discus. Soon this discus farm will no longer exist, but there are certainly many more of its kind, considering all of the fans of these sought-after fish. With this modern and well-planned facility, Winston Chan is one of the few big breeders in Hong Kong. He also resides with his discus fish in a skyscraper on the 14th floor of a factory building on the outskirts of Victoria. In approximately 350 aquariums, he breeds 17 to 18,000 discus fish per year. Approximately 70% of them are sent to Taiwan, and 25% are sent to other Asian countries. Only around 5% remain in Hong Kong. Winston Chan's discus fish are without exception of high quality. Form and colour are excellent. The high body form plays an important part here too. Besides that, the colour blue is predominant here. The breeding and rearing aquariums vary in size. Each has a separate water feed and drain. A thick main pipe on the floor serves as a receptacle for the water drained from each of the aquariums. On each aquarium, a pipe installed at the front of the tank controls the water level and serves as a foolproof overflow safety. Therefore, excess water can flow off. Flexible drain pipes fitted with a hand pump serve to cleanse the aquariums of excrement and food residues. With this hand pump pipe that leads directly into the draining system, the aquariums can be easily cleaned without having to start suction with the mouth. Each tank has its own separate connections, devices and drains. The tanks on the top shelves generally serve as water storage tanks. We asked Winston Chan how much of the water is changed daily. We change at least 1/3, but usually the half of the water in every tank daily. A box with a filter through which the tank water flows is fitted to nearly every aquarium to assure good water quality. The water is pumped out of the aquarium with an electric pump placed beside the filter box onto the material in the filter and then seeps through the substratum back into the aquarium. These piggyback filter boxes that can be cleaned without difficulty are ideal helpers in the fight against water impurity that can crop up very quickly. Many of the necessary care procedures are automated in this modern facility. An appropriately large electric control panel fitted with numerous timers that control light, filters, pumps, water flow, as well as the regulation of the reserve tanks is almost a matter of course here. For cleaning the numerous utensils, there is a sink with a draining board at the top of every aisle. They allow filters and feeding utensils, for example, to be cleaned without having to carry them across the room, which eliminates unnecessary water splashing. On the whole, this facility is very dry. There is almost no water on the floor. It is possible to work here without a raft and rubber boots. Normal tap water is used for breeding here. With an average of 4 to 5 degrees of hardness, it can still be called soft. The pH level fluctuates between 7.4 and 7.5, so it is slightly alkaline. And what is the temperature of the water in the aquariums? For breeding as well as for normal care, the water has a temperature of between 29 and 30 degrees Celsius. In the cool winter months, we have to use electric heaters. To raise healthy animals with an excellent form and colour, a diversified diet enriched with vitamins and important nutrients is crucial. Winston Chan feeds his fish a thick pulp made out of beef heart and muscle meat. It is apparently the ideal mixture for the good development of his discus. When they are 5 days old, Fry received nauplia from Artemia salina as a first supplementary food. A large unit is used for incubating large amounts of Artemia eggs, which are then fed to the fish as live food or to some extent as frozen food. Breeding pairs receive above all shrimps and larger Artemia as well as red mosquito larvae, known as bloodworms. On the whole, a variable palette of foods is used in Hong Kong for achieving different colour goals. Shrimp eggs are generally fed to intensify the red colour and red eyes. Beef heart for a high body form and to assist the development of the colour blue. And shrimp meat for a metallic shine and the intensification of the colour green. But Winston Chan has his own methods that are quite clearly successful too. When asked about his hopes for the future, he replied that he hopes for further beautiful and healthy breeds, as well as new, interestingly coloured discus fish. Penang, the island paradise in the Indian Ocean, or the island of the betel nut palm trees in the northwest of Malaysia, is a popular tourist destination because of its beautiful scenery, its palm beaches, and its pleasant tropical climate. Georgetown, also known as Penang City, is the capital of the island. A former English settlement, the first of its kind in Malaysia. Even today, one can still sense a touch of the old colonial times in the architecture. Penang is developing more and more into a very modern and up-to-date island, with citizens of diverse origins, but all with a common home. Harmony, tolerance and industry make up the life in Penang. But there are also many sights to see in Penang. Framed with picturesque monasteries, the Buddhist temple Kek Lok Si and the 30-metre-high pagoda of the 10,000 Buddhas stand on top of Ayah Itam Hill. The temple grounds are especially beautiful. It covers the entire hill with its shrines, altars and unusual Buddha statues. The Snake Temple, built in 1850 and known well beyond the region, is one of a kind, with its multitude of snakes that slither between sacrificial tables and prayer lamps and are revered by the devout. Surrounded by the wafting smoke of incense, it is an especially mystical place for the visitor. In contrast to it is the Thai temple where the great golden Buddha rests. Across the way, the Burmese temple with its impressive filigree architecture, a place of worship of impressive beauty. On the island, there are many points of interest for the tourist. One of the newer sites that demonstrates a solicitous love of animals and close ties to nature is, for example, the Penang Butterfly Farm, where one can see the Malaysian winged wonders. Thousands of butterflies in an almost natural habitat with a waterfall and a pond. The grounds cover nearly 400 square meters. It is very seldom that one has the chance to see so many different kinds of butterflies on such a small space. The close bonds with nature and the love of animals can also be seen with a visit to the Marine Aquarium in the Comtar building in the centre of Georgetown. The underwater world of the tropical seas is presented here. Because of the proximity to the sea, mostly fish and corals from the Indian Ocean are on display here. With its motto, "See the underwater world of colourful fishes," the Marine Aquarium on the 4th floor of the Comtar building is a meeting point frequented not only by tourists. One of the leading aquaristics businesses in Penang can be found at the foot of the Comtar building, a business and office complex with a packing garage and a large hotel. While caring for and breeding aquarium fish is becoming a more and more interesting hobby for the Malaysians as well, there appears to be a bright future for businesses specializing in aquaristics. Aquarium Garma is such a business. With its large and varied range of fish and accessories, even spoiled customers can be satisfied. Most of the fish offered here are native to Africa and South America. Fish native to Asia are comparatively rare. The fish offered here are almost exclusively out of breeding stock from Bangkok and Singapore. On the average, there are 40 to 50 different species offered for sale. It is an incredible diversity, considering that aquaristics is at the beginning of its development in this country, and nevertheless ranks higher in popularity than the intensive keeping of and caring for pedigree dogs and cats. Aside from the well-known koi, albino fish such as the blood papagai cichlids from Taiwan are very popular. Generally, it is a smaller fish with a length of up to 8 centimeters that are very much in demand. The relatively low price plays an important part. They must also be colorful and easy to care for. Mainly dry food in many different variations, but mostly in the form of pellets, is being fed. But live food such as tubifex is often for sale too. A wide range of products for the successful care are being offered for sale, mostly products of Malaysia or Taiwan and Hong Kong. Because of the comparatively high prices, very few products are imported from Germany and Japan. In regards to aquatic plants, aquaristics in Malaysia still plays a subordinate role. To this day, there is no alternative to plastic plants for many aquarists. Accordingly, a large assortment of them are offered for sale. There are plastic plants in all types and sizes. Their forms and colors have been expertly copied, very much to the pleasure of Asian aquarists. Plastic plants are easy to care for, and at least they cannot die, is the argument that is often heard even today. But there also may be a lack of information about ecological aquaristics with real aquatic plants. It is also possible that real aquatic plants cannot be sold with a profit, for who is going to buy aquatic plants when they grow in every stream in the area? There are approximately 15 shops for aquaristics in Penang. The Chu Ten Yang Aquarium is one of the pioneers in this field. This long-established specialty shop offers one of the largest selections of species. Typical for regions with a tropical climate, it is outdoors, and therefore it is subject to the daily weather changes. An outdoor aquarium shop, something unusual for visitors from more temperate climates. In Penang, not all aquaristics are the same. While a large number of fish lovers keep ornamental fish as an entertainment, there are also people who attend to one special fish species. Although discus fish are cared for everywhere in Malaysia, it seems that they can be found most frequently in Penang. The first discus came to Penang from Singapore. First the brown ones were introduced, then the so-called seven colours, and then later the royal discus. Discus fish have been bred in Penang since the beginning of the 70s. Today, the island is one of the most successful discus breeding centres in Asia. There are approximately 90 to 100 small and 5 or 6 big breeding facilities. Because of the climatic conditions, most of the breeding facilities are on the ground floor and are enclosed to ensure enough shade. Because Penang has a typical tropical climate, there are no difficulties with temperature when keeping discus fish outdoors, as opposed to Hong Kong. Even the small breeders in Penang have mostly larger facilities with a corresponding number of aquariums. What began with a few old aquariums with iron frames has been quickly modernized. For the most part, the turquoise or the royal blue variations are in circulation as breeding stock for discus fish. Now clear from Artemia salina, which can be bred from eggs in old beverage bottles without any trouble and then usually poured directly into the aquarium along with the salt water, is fed to the fry in the first few days. Many breeders feed adolescent and larger animals with tubifex, which have been watered extensively in bowls or tubs, often under running water and with ventilation. In Penang, the importance of a good water quality, that means the constant removal of excrement and food residue for the health of the fish, and a good development was recognized long ago. The breeding and rearing facilities here are, unlike in Hong Kong, nearly always connected to residential buildings, and for protection against the often scorching sun, are well shaded. House and discus rooms make up a unit. The large facilities with several hundred aquariums are also constructed as an annex to a residential building. There is no separate lighting for the aquariums. The natural lighting, that in part comes from transparent roofs, has to suffice for observation, for work, and for breeding and care. The water changes are generously made by using voluminous water hoses. With the help of a system of distribution pipes, there is always enough air for the oxygen enrichment of the water. Piggyback filters, similar to those used in Hong Kong, are also used here to improve the water quality. For the fry, freshly hatched nauplia from Artemia are the smallest live food on the menu. Surprisingly, larger animals are fed lots of tubifex that have previously been soaked extensively in water. It is a food that discus fish like to eat, and when it comes from clean and unpolluted waters, they can eat it without damage to their health. Nevertheless, one should be careful. One of the largest breeders in Penang is Teok Ben Chai. His farm, which lies south of Georgetown, is also kept in an annex to the house, whereby the breeding pairs are kept in the house. Mr. Teok breeds selected pairs. He calls his special fish brilliant blue, but he also breeds other color variations. The breeding tanks have no fittings whatsoever. There is also no spawning substratum such as clay vases, rocks or plastic pipes. Therefore, the animals spawn directly onto the glass. The water used for breeding comes directly out of the tap and is not processed. Apparently, the water is soft to middle hard. The breeders generally do not know the exact data. Only the pH value is measured frequently and lies between 6.5 and 7.0. It is not exactly the ideal water for discus breeding. As a result, the hatching rate is not especially high. Because often up to 80% of the eggs become infested with fungus, and to protect the few developing embryos from being eaten before they hatch, the clutch is covered with a coarsely meshed wire, so that the parent fish can see their eggs and care for them by using the water movement, but it is impossible for them to eat them. The wire may first be removed when the embryos have hatched from their egg sacs and hang on to the substratum as larvae, while apparently the wriggling of the larvae inhibits their parents from eating them, and therefore they continue taking care of the brood. The breeding pairs are mainly fed with red mosquito larvae bloodworms. After about 10 days, the young fish receive artemia as the first supplementary food. What are the larger adolescent discus fed?
I give big discus, only 2 beef face, beef heart, and bloodworms.
A large amount of live food is always on hand to feed the numerous hungry mouths. Approximately 100 breeding pairs produce, according to the hatching rate, a large number of young fish that must be solicitously cared for. A varied diet as well as good water quality guarantee a healthy development. How often is the water changed in the aquariums, which are partly occupied with many fish?
I change the water 2 times daily.
Because all bits of leftover food and wastes are removed with every change of the water, and because of the large amounts of fresh water used, there is hardly any chance for disease. Because of this high-quality care, the discus fish develop in a healthy manner. The temperature of the water is generally between 28 and 30 degrees Celsius. Usually the water comes out of the tap with a temperature of 28 degrees or higher. 3 large water tanks next to the facility increase the amount of water pressure if needed, or serve respectively as a reserve or provide warmer water due to the higher daytime temperatures. This farm has approximately 150 aquariums and approximately 10,000 fry are produced here every year. When asked about his hopes for the future, Mr. Teok replied that he would like to breed golden discus fish one day. How and when this might come about is still in the stars, but without hopes and dreams the future is bleak. The fact of the matter is that this farm already produces very fine discus fish. How much the aquarium with the unusual fish will play a part in the future remained unknown. Are they only remnants, or are they already the testing assortment for new experiments? Aside from the small and larger breeder, there are also specialists. Ronnie Chu is one of them with his farm. In his nearly 60 aquariums, he has limited himself to breeding only a few special discus color variations. In approximately 3 to 4 years of work, and with an intensive and careful selection, he has succeeded in crossbreeding a new and very appealing color form, which he calls the golden rainbow. It is a new, very beautiful and appealing color form that has distant parallels to other new color variations, but in comparison, the golden rainbow lacks the black colorings on the body and fins. Ronnie Chu attends to the golden rainbow and a variation of the so-called ghost discus, the gold head ghost, which is an attractive enhancement of the ghost discus originating in Penang. In this case as well, normal tap water is used for general care and breeding. The tap water, which is often cloudy, is middle hard and has a pH level of between 6.5 and 6.8. For regular care as well as breeding, the water temperature is kept at around 30 degrees Celsius, which is achieved by heaters on cooler days when the temperature drops to 25 to 28 degrees. This happens above all during the rainy season because the water cools down and comes with a temperature of 25 to 26 degrees Celsius out of the tap. Only around 4,000 discus fish are bred each year in this comparatively small facility, mainly because of the specialization. The reproduction of the golden rainbow is especially interesting. Still, Ronnie Chu is at the very beginning with this breeding line. How many golden rainbow breeding pairs does he have at the moment?
到目前为止，我们有直配到6对。
At the moment, I have 8 pairs. As the first breeder of this new colour variation, Ronnie Chu devotes special attention to these fish. Their bill of fare includes beef heart, beef and muscle meat. Young fish are fed shrimp eggs and a mixture of beef heart, muscle meat and artemia. On the 5th or 6th day, fry receive freshly hatched nauplia from Artemia salina, and at this point they are separated from the parents, possibly somewhat early. That the young fish and the parent animals must be attended to very carefully is obvious. A question for Ronnie Chu. What are the breeding animals fed?
我们的饲料是用牛心、牛肉、鱼
My
饵。
breeding animals receive the same food as all the other fish. Despite all of the care taken, the new line of Golden Rainbow is full of surprises. Ronnie Chu also hopes for the future that the 6 breeding aquariums will always be filled with many healthy and beautiful offspring. The Golden Rainbow, a colour variety created by Ronnie Chu, and possibly the Gold-Head Ghost as well, will soon enthuse the world of discus lovers. They will most probably conquer the hearts of the aquarist in a triumphal march. Bangkok, in the Thai language Krang Thep, the City of Angels, the capital of Thailand, is one of the constantly growing metropolis in Southeast Asia. Bangkok, it is seething traffic that stifles everything, a metropolis breaking at the seams, boundless industry, and despite it all, smiling and friendly people. Bangkok, it is also splendidly restored exotic temple grounds. Above all, the large complex of the Grand Palace with its sacral district, whose entry gates are guarded by the yaks, the giant guard figures. Gilded Naga snakes and Garanda figures adorn the different temples. Gates decorated with mother of pearl, as well as carefully gilded gables, embellish the reverentially cared for places of prayer and monastery buildings. A golden pagoda is a splendid landmark on these grounds. The temple grounds of the Wat Phra Keo is one of the largest tourist attractions of the country and links the history of old Siam with present-day Thailand. Bangkok. It is, aside from all of the industry, also the love for animals. This is not only evident in the unusually large number of animals presented at the Sunday and weekend markets. Aside from dogs, cats and other animals, very many aquarium and pond fish are offered for sale here. An unusually wide-ranging assortment for a partially mobile market that is only open 3 days a week. Bangkok made a name for itself in the field of aquaristics quite early with the export of aquarium fish. Important export companies have supported these efforts for many years. Well-known and long-established companies like Star Aquarium keep extensive holding facilities for this purpose. In 500 aquariums and numerous large cement tanks, the fish are kept here in interim so that they are prepared to be transported throughout the world. Just how large the number of aquarium fish breeders and merchants is in Bangkok and the region is shown by the wide range of offered goods at the fish market that takes place once a week and shouldn't be confused with the Sunday or weekend markets. Here, aquarium fish are pre-packed in small and large plastic bags according to their species and size and sold for retail sale. Merchants buy their products here. At this market, one very seldom finds the exporter as a buyer. The opinion is often wrongly held that the fish offered here do not meet the criteria for export and therefore are second-rate. That the best animals are exported anyway. But that is an assertion that cannot be confirmed after a visit to this market. For the most part, there are many different species on sale. Aside from the typical Thai fish, the pla cat, known as the Siamese fighting fish Betta splendens, there are also discus fish in various sizes. Mostly adolescent fish can be found here, but there are also large sexually mature breeding fish. The colour blue is predominant here too. Aside from these and many other species, one can also find for special occasions these so-called dyed fish that are brilliantly coloured for a few weeks because of a special treatment. Water tanks for a change of water and oxygen bottles for the transport of the fish are on hand as a customer service. Many of the fish bought here can later be found in the numerous aquarium and pet shops. There you can choose between a wide range of fish species and equipment. For the caring of and breeding of the more sensitive species, the water in Bangkok is generally quite rich in minerals and also very alkaline. But it is different outside of the bend of the Menam River on the westerly side of the city in the Thonburi district. There, a soft and slightly acidic water comes out of the water taps, and because of this, the corresponding fish, among them the discus, can be taken care of. Mr. Somsak is one of the many breeders of these fish that have made a name for themselves in Bangkok because of the high quality of their breeds. His main breeding facility is placed in a house, whereby the breeding aquariums are kept on the first floor. Compared with Hong Kong, Bangkok is a tropical region. But nevertheless, the night temperatures in the cooler seasons of the year can sometimes sink to 15 degrees Celsius. Therefore, heating, or at least warming the breeding rooms is absolutely necessary, and that requires a more or less enclosed building. The best time for breeding is between the months of August and March. The rest of the year it is usually too warm and does not allow productive breeding. Mr. Somsak's entire facility is spread over 3 locations and has a total of approximately 500 aquariums. 200 of them are used as breeding tanks. According to the season, they hold 50 to 100 breeding pairs. The parent animals should be at least 14 months old for breeding. To increase the harmony of the pairs, 5 males and 5 females are placed together, and the pairs that find each other stay together. Here again, tap water is used for general care and for breeding. The water is relatively soft and has a conductivity of approximately 300 microsiemens. The pH value lies around 7.0. It is not exactly the ideal water for breeding, but a water that, despite a slight cloudiness, can still be used without processing. Although a large part of the clutch becomes infected with fungus, it frequently comes to larger swarms of young fish, depending on the color variety. A protective wire over the spawn is also used here until the embryos successfully hatch, or rather the larvae start swimming. Conical clay vases, over which a likewise conically formed wire is placed, are used as a spawning substratum. With a distance of 1 to 2 centimeters from the clutch, it allows the parents to care for but not eat the eggs or the larvae. Aside from the royal and the turquoise discus, other color varieties are also bred, and experiments are made to develop new color variations. All of the discus at this farm make the impression of being very well developed and healthy. A question for Mr. Somsak about the feeding of his discus. What are your breeding fish fed? We feed them shrimp eggs, live black mosquito larvae and tubifex. But most of the other discus also receive this varied diet. The fish grow well with this food. The breeding animals occasionally receive cocoons from the larvae of black mosquitoes for a better condition. From the 4th day on, fry receive several times a day small live moina, a type of tropical water flea in addition, but they do not receive nauplia from Artemius. With this frequent and intensive feeding, the question of water quality has to be raised. Filters are not in use. It remains to be asked, how often is the water in each aquarium changed each day?
2 ครั้งครับ
We change the half of the water twice a day. The water in the tanks has a temperature of 30 to 32 degrees Celsius. Large blowers provide a sufficient supply of air or oxygen for the aquarium water. The air is distributed through thick plastic pipes and then passed through thin tubes into the water of the aquariums. The rearing tanks are placed on the lower floors. This is where the young fish are reared. All in all, it is a well cared for facility that produces around 15,000 fish each year. Because of their form and their colour, one can say that these are discus fish of very high quality. Also in the future, the quality of the discus fish is the highest priority for Mr. Somsak. When it comes to the colour of the fish, he also gladly takes the wishes of the customer into consideration. The most spectacular colour variation of recent years was introduced in 1991. It came onto the market with the name pigeon blood, named after a special gem, a beautiful red ruby. In Malaysia, it is often called red ruby discus as well. On the other hand, in the United States, it is called red dragon. The colour of this discus fish is so unusual that, considering the previously known breeding colours, one can speak of a revolution in colour breeding. Aside from that, they seem to be far more robust than other animals, and because of their unusual appearance, they have already made their way into aquariums around the world. Mr. Kitty Panaiti is thought to be the first to breed this unusual fish. For more than 18 years, he and his wife have been breeding discus fish. According to them, the pigeon blood is a product of crossing the Thai royal and the turquoise discus. Contrary to all of the pessimistic talk and the contentions of malicious tongues, the pigeon blood is not a dyed fish. The characteristics of pigeon blood have already proven themselves to be hereditary. Nevertheless, new colour nuances are constantly appearing. Mr. Kitty also has his discus farm on the west side of Bangkok, outside of the Menam Bend. In cooperation with many small breeders, he operates the main facility with around 300 aquariums. They breed approximately 10,000 discus fish each year. One asks himself what sort of water is used for the breeding of pigeon blood. Special water or normal tap water? Mrs. Panaiti gives the answer. We use normal tap water. This tap water is comparatively soft and has a neutral pH level of 7. To guarantee a good development of the discus and a high quality of water is important for just that, almost all of the water in the aquariums is changed twice daily. In the summer months at least, the water is warmed by the air temperature, or rather controlled with fans or with air conditioning when available in the hot summer months. As the main source of nutrition, live black mosquito larvae and tubifex are on the menu, and for smaller fish, shrimp eggs as well. Care is always taken that the animals used for breeding are beautiful and healthy discus fish, and are at least 12 months old. Generally, 100 young fish per pair and active spawning is considered a good result. They are allowed to reproduce for nearly 3 years. According to hitherto existing observations, they have the same life expectancy as other colour varieties or fish from the wild. Pigeon blood is not only because of its colour and form the ideal fish for the budding discus lover, but also because of its previously observed resistance to various diseases. pigeon blood has already made its way into the aquariums of the world, and as can be heard everywhere, with a great success. Bangkok, the centre for discus fish. Many well-established and new colour varieties are breeded here and are exported from this city into the rest of the world. The sales are taken care for by exporters, such as the Siam Pet Fish Trading in the Sukhumvit Road in Soi 62. Here the breeders deliver the ordered discus fish and then they are packed separately in small special transport bags. The size of the bags and the amount of water within depends on the time needed for transport and delivery. At the same time, the used water in the big plastic bags is exchanged with the clean water that the breeding farms also deliver. The small transport bags that are halfway filled with water are then filled with oxygen and closed. The fish are packed singly in a plastic bag corresponding to their size. With movement, the oxygen that has been added is whipped into the water, which ensures that the water is constantly enriched with oxygen. It is a mode of transportation that is acceptable for several hours. Nearly 200,000 discus fish leave Bangkok each year. Approximately 40% are exported to Taiwan and 30% to Japan. 20% are sold to the USA and only 10% to Europe. The number of exports from the other discus centres are unknown, but are probably comparable to those of Bangkok. Hong Kong, Penang and Bangkok. There are very many different kinds of discus fish from breeding facilities that clearly vary from one to another, raised under various conditions of care and fed under varying feeding practices. But they all have one thing in common. They are all of a remarkably high quality and beauty. Discus farms in Asia. More and more a guarantee for beautiful and healthy discus fish.